Welcome back to Bellaforme. I don't know what you see on the screen right now, but we are trying out different formats for our series, and this one we are calling Formechat, an interactive and engaging video podcast. My name is Omar.
My name's Ashli.
I'm Chi.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we have a very current and important topic, which is racism in Trinidad
and Tobago.
So I mean, we need Tyler for that. I mean, I specifically did not want to do it because it's, probably a whole different experience.
True. But still, you still have to say the and Tobago partner, because if you don't, he will manifest in spirit.
Oh, God. So basically what we're going to do is that we will ask ourselves questions and get the ball rolling on the conversation. So, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word racism?
Honestly, for me, it's for some reason less so, stories of racism here and more so stories of racism elsewhere in the world. So I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of the recent police shootings of black men in the States. Again, it's kind of like ramping up. And that's all that's been more or less populated my YouTube feed as of late. It's been kind of difficult to dodge.
Not just like black men, but black persons and black bodies in general. Because there was a 15-year-old girl that was shot the other day because she felt threatened in the group foster home I think she was in, and she had a knife for self-defense. And the police came on the scene and they just said, I think hands up or whatever, and then they just started shooting. They didn't give anybody time to react and she died.
Now, to be fair with that particular case, you did see the body cam footage, correct?
No.
She was actually literally in the process of attempting to stab one of the other girls when they fired. So that particular case has a bit more controversy associated with it, though.
I understand.
But it's still agreeable that
it's still agreeable that you
that
don't shoot
course of action by the
kill.
police is too extreme.
Yeah. You don't. Yeah. You're not God. Like, even if she's going to stab someone, there's still probably an easier way to stop her, shoot her in
apprehend her,
shoot her in her leg, her shoulder, not multiple times in her chest and area and stuff to kill her.
The first thing I think about when I hear the word racism is my mind automatically goes to racism in the USA, just because it's always been on the forefront and has such a ripple effect on the world. So anytime I hear the word racism, it just automatically goes to America.
Yeah.
Well, for me, just when I say racism in general, I just think about people discriminating against somebody in a different race. Flat out, not specifically Caribbean, not specifically the USA. I think that's only because I know a very large, diverse group of people, so it's not very specified in my mind.
So what do you guys think about racism specifically in Trinidad? Oh my God.
I think that's the fish man.
It definitely does exist.
Listen, what would help with the aesthetic if it was the buy an old buy?
Racism definitely does exist in Trinidad, I would say. When I think about racism in the Caribbean, though, I think more about issues of colorism, but then we have to remember that not every single Caribbean island is primarily homogeneous when it comes to racial makeup. So because of that, they're still gonna have those issues with different groups in the countries like Trinidad where they have multiple makeups.
Whenever I think of racism in Trinidad, I always think of politics, because when time for politics come around, the racism seems to spike a lot because of the
Yeah,
division.
I was not gonna say that same thing.
Yeah.
Because politicians use it as a pawn.
Yeah, but I feel like if citizens say it's politics and politicians are saying XYZ, they're just using that as an excuse and they're not really taking responsibility for their own decisions and their own mindsets and ideologies. Because I fail to see like why a politician has influence on how you see the world and how you treat your neighbor. But that's just me. I don't know. It still doesn't make any sense. Because you're not supposed to vote based off race in the first place. You're supposed to vote off what you believe would be right for the future. It shouldn't matter who is at head in that. Because then you're saying, oh, it's a race thing, so we need to have a particular race that's leading the country, and that don't make any sense. And I honestly do wonder if these people understand like what they're voting for or what their future really holds, if they actually care, if they actually want to be a part of it, or if they just want to be like, we want a leader who's going to take care of everything and baby us for the rest of our lives and everything will be fine, like a parent takes care of a child till they're old enough. So when is everybody else going to make decisions for themselves? But that's just, I don't know, I feel like if I talk too much about politics, that's a whole different conversation on its own.
Nah,
But yeah, around election time, they always like to pull a race card. But to me, and for the younger generation, I don't think that's gonna work much longer. Because I feel like a lot of people like our age know better and we're smarter than that. So I don't know how long they're gonna try and play it. But it kind of makes the politicians look very stupid when they try to do that, or the supporters of the politician. Because you know, in these campaigns, it's all set up. Not everything is real. They like, you literally run a campaign trying to win votes. So you're running it with an agenda.
indeed.
And you have to think from the low level grounds to people who don't know that much about anything and how you're gonna manipulate them into voting for you. And that's just how it is. Like, I think everyone knows that by now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Politics in this country is like very surface level. There's no real point to it, because one of our campaign like choices is a music truck to get people to
Right.
vote for you. Can you imagine if other countries had that?
It's really kind of backwards.
Yeah.
It's brainwashing. It's like, wow, this is so cool. I want to be part of this cool thing. And then you would run go and be like, haha, your party didn't have this cool thing. Like, it's so childish. And I honestly want to point out the demographic that they target is always the people who don't know any better. And I feel like that is so advantageous. Because it's like, I mean, yeah, they should know better at some point. These people have to learn. And if they choose to be ignorant, then that's kind of sad. But at the same time, if they genuinely don't know better, it's so advantageous. You just take something and you play along with that mentality, that very simplistic mentality, like, wow, this is better, we have this, you don't have that. And if you... the best thing is Facebook comments. This is why I like to stay off Facebook now. You see something and out of reaction, I just have a gut feeling. I'll be like, wow, this is so nice. I bet you there's someone have a problem with this. You just click on the comments and you read the most childish discussion ever, and you just sit there and wonder, like, I see.
Yeah. Worse is like, well, not worse, but I guess on the same level. If you ever like read the comments on news articles on the actual like news sites for Newsday and
Oh,
Express
Lord,
and
yes.
stuff, some of the most degenerate filth arguments people will get into there, and it's like, why are you investing this time and energy? And you know, it's an echo chamber, right? Because nobody else on the outside really cares except
Yeah, it's
them.
an echo chip. That's exactly what it is. That's a very good description for it. It's like nobody cares. It's not gonna go anywhere. This is not helping the situation. And then when you do read something that makes sense, people will hit against it because they just choose not to pay attention to it.
Right?
It's like willful ignorance. Like, are you reading? Hello? But I think that us as a nation should do better to educate everybody across the board, or at least try and, like, for areas where people literally live in a bubble where they just don't know any better. They don't have access to the knowledge we have access to. I feel like at some point as a nation we need to try and reach out to these communities to bring them up to the same level of I don't want to use the term like intelligence, because everyone has their own intelligence their own way, but same level of awareness, of more self-awareness, so they would learn to make decisions for themselves and not bandwagon onto what everybody else is saying, and not be like, oh, this is the most common culture in my village, so this is how it must be. Because Lord, now that we're talking about this topic, I'm gonna tell you, there's some areas within the Southland areas that is racist as fuck. Like, I am sorry, it's just I can't. This is why I just don't talk to people. I just but like, this is why I stay in my house. It is a culture. It's there. The culture is there, and you see it like existing, and it's disgusting, and you can't really say anything against it because they always have. If you so much as say something, they're like, "Oh, but so and so," and it's like the most stupidest thing that they always have as a rebuttal.
Yeah. One of the things as well, and race and politics is so intertwined. Societally, people are kept at a disadvantage, and then they are made to believe that the problem is, some other racial group, or that racial group is demonized in politics, within religious gatherings, through media they might consume and what have you, and they're not leaving their communities to see and know otherwise, and then the communities are so homogenized in the first place that those ideologies are so easily reinforced amongst them. So it's a really difficult thing to, when it comes to like educating people otherwise, because constantly we are seeing on the news, and on social media as well, they would post the most unflattering photo of an individual. They would say that this individual is in custody for some crime or whatever, and before we even hear about any specifics of whatever the crime was, or before the case even reaches in court, there's already the court of public opinion on social media where this individual is demonized, and you would always see in the comments some people will be quick to mention the individual's race as if it is somehow a factor in their place in life at the moment.
Yeah, I always see that sometimes when it's a black criminal or someone it's always, oh, them black people, this and that.
Yeah. It happens a lot of ways too. On the flip side as well, any sort of domestic disputes or family disputes amongst East Indians, people will be quick to, make jokes about, poison or cutlasses being involved and that sort of thing. Right? Like, stereotypes are, I guess, firmly planted in the minds of people from the day they're born here, almost.
Yeah, your household, if you grew up in it, that's all you're going to know, right? That's what you're going to learn. Because there's 3 institutes that take place in like growing up a child and their ideology: your school, your community, and your household, right?
Yeah, it's like pounded into your head that Indian people are evil, black people are evil. And because they hate us from a child, when they grow up, they can't break out of it.
And especially if they grow up in a community with specifically only that race, that when they interact with people outside of that community for the first time, obviously we know how they're going to react to it. And then if they go out in groups from that community into a mixed community, they're gonna engage in very stupid things like, I don't know, mini gangs, bullying, a bunch of nonsense that just shouldn't exist. And then what happens when that group meets a group of people who are understanding, a mixed group of friends who just don't have any of those beliefs? What they're gonna, like, would that change their viewpoints? Because there's a question I want to ask, like, so for the thing in the States, right? I have a lot of friends on Facebook from years now. We connected like through anime or K-dramas or what stuff like that. And we follow each other posts, and I would sometimes see racism going back and forth from both sides, both whites and blacks. And to me, I keep wondering, like, if two wrongs make a right kind of scenario. Like, if you one day minding your business and you are fine, and then out of nowhere someone shows up and they start acting real racist towards you, would you become a racist as well in general to every group of people? Would you slap that label on them, like everyone is racist, or would you specifically treat that person in particular the same way they treat you back, which in my opinion would be fair? But I was just wondering, like how would you treat that if one day you're minding your business and somebody just comes up to you and they start being racist? And let's go unconventional here. Let's say country somewhere in the like a Russian. We meet a Russian for the first time. I don't know if you guys actually have Russian friends, mind you, but and they are dirt racist. They speak English very well and they understand it, and they dirt racist towards you in particular. Would you label, or would you feel very on guard for every Russian person you meet thereafter?
Not necessarily. I know for me, well, I wouldn't be quick to label them all as racist. I like to, I guess, individualize people. So if one person is racist to me, then that's that. Because in my personal experience, I've interacted with people of many cultures and races and places all over the world, and for them to interact with me in the first place as a black person would show that there's a certain level of tolerance out there that exists, and we can find it very easily, and it's not everyone out there is just this closed-minded demon.
Yeah. All right, so here's our next question. So Chair just pointed out the reason why he wouldn't do that is because he knows a lot of people. He has a diverse group of friends, similar to me. I also have a diverse group of friends, so I know not to judge one bad apple, not to judge all of them, right? And say this entire group of people is like this. What about you, Ashli and Umar? Why would you not do the same? Is it similar reason or?
Yeah, I mean, similar to you, like I have made a lot of friends, close friends, all over the world. So I do hold the same belief that just because one person may be a troll doesn't necessarily speak for all persons in that group. Yeah, a lot of practice moderating Discord servers.
Oh yes, good old Discord.
Built up by tolerance.
But yeah, I feel like it's just because all of us have this background and this knowledge. But what about like these communities? And you all know exactly what kind of communities I'm referring to in Trinidad. They don't have access to the wider world. They don't have access to people outside of their communities. How exactly do we break this hard-headedness of theirs? Do you guys think people choose to be ignorant? I know sometimes some people do, but do you guys think there's a way to break through ignorance? When I say ignorance, I know people don't really know the exact meaning of this, but it means someone genuinely just don't know.
Right.
So, do you guys know, like, what's a good way to try and get through to people that just don't know? Experience, right?
Yeah, I would say love, lots of love and compassion, but because I really do believe after a certain point some people choose to be ignorant because you have the ability to learn for yourself and continue to learn as we grow, and some people think that they know enough and then they just shut off, right? And that then influences how they might raise their children in turn, right? Perpetuates the problems of intolerance and ignorance. And so it's simply to show people otherwise on a daily basis to be the bigger and better person, so to speak.
Yeah, I think we should try our best to educate the people around us, especially because I think a lot of people are afraid to tell their family something because family relationship is so fragile. And even just one argument could destroy a family. You know, in Trinidad.
Which is very stupid.
Yeah.
And I actually have an experience to share about that, of something I witnessed. And it's very sad and it's stupid. Like, that was one thing. Like, when we start talking about we experiences, I'll share that story. But something I like to suggest, like, since we're making this podcast public, more or less, and this is for other people to hear, like, if we could create, like, a Google Doc that's, or some form of where people could submit something, like for them to make a list of all the different things they heard from their own races about another race that they know isn't true, but just in general, all the racist things that they've heard, like the slurs, and compile like different lists and then do a debunking on everything. Just give it to the others and be like, okay, so this is what this is, but what kind of shit this is it's dumb, right? And at least bring it out to the open, because I feel it's so silly. It genuinely is very silly.
It is.
So I could make like a list on both sides and then come together and be like, debunk all this bullshit, and then send it back to whoever it was to get the information from, and be like, how do you feel when you read this now? This side of the story, you know? This can go really good or really bad. I'll be honest, right now, right here. This could be this is 50-50, but you know, you gotta try.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you wouldn't know till you try it, right? So it's the intentions that count.
When I think about, like, when I was younger, there was some times in school where, for one example, it was me and a good friend of mine. We were accused by a teacher of a neighboring class of stealing fish from their classroom aquarium, and it really did feel racially motivated. But the thing is, that's only what my parents relayed to me, because as a child, you know, as a 7-year-old in standard 2, I am not aware, you know, especially living in Chaguanas with this, you know, relatively diverse makeup of people. I wasn't necessarily aware of concepts of racism or anything like that. I mean, well, when it comes to life at home in my former neighborhood, definitely, because my mom experienced, you know, striking racism from my neighbor's wife in particular. It was disgusting. But yeah, I had that moment in school. There was another moment in secondary school, but I don't really want to think of it as anything racially motivated at all, so I wouldn't bring that up. Then in like personal life, I've been profiled in my own neighborhood twice. My own neighborhood that I've been living in for the last 21 years of my life, basically.
Can you elaborate a bit on it?
So, the first instance was me and a friend of mine were walking down the street. We were just heading out to a store, and it wasn't even a neighbor, but it was someone coming to visit a neighbor living on the lower end of the street. They were in their car with their kids. As we approached the car, we heard the door lock. Right? Yeah. And my friend next to me, at the time, I didn't necessarily feel offended because I know I'm a resident of the neighborhood. I've been living there for a long time and everything like that. This person doesn't even know me. So they could feel free to be stupid and show their signs of racism and lock their door. I am of no threat to them or anything like that. They have no threat to me. But my friend at the time was very upset by this. You know, being not a resident of the neighborhood and that sort of thing, you know, because he's from an area where he wouldn't have to experience that sort of thing in the first place. And the second time was funnily enough, walking out of my own home. My dad's in the street with his car parked, waiting for me to enter. And as I'm walking out, I could see my neighbor living in the corner house, just standing in his driveway with his arms folded. And he's just looking at me with like this stern look on his face. I'm not sure if I could really include this, but I just kind of felt this way. Because he only turned away when I went into my dad's car, and you know, as we drove by, he continued to look at me, and then just went back in his house. And I'm like, is it that, you know, he spends so much time in his home? Because where I do live, our neighbors don't necessarily interact with each other that often. Or is it that he spends so much time in his home that he doesn't even know who I am, and I look that foreign and alien and threatening somehow, and that he needed to assume this posture with me? Because I was just minding my own business, going to my father's car to conduct some passport business that day. Like, you know, it seemed off to me.
Wow. So he just stared at you for no reason.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just felt, I guess, some malice behind that stare. But the incident with my mom when I was a kid was it was really nasty. So my neighbors living directly next door to us, the husband was of East Indian descent, the wife was white. They had a mixed daughter. So it wasn't even just towards my mom, it was really towards us. My dad used to call me Bub as a nickname when I was growing up, like how Wolverine would call everyone Bub. And so then the neighbor started calling one of his dogs Bub. The dog's name was not originally Bub. My dad didn't like the fact that his nickname with me was associated with a dog, so he had to stop calling me Bub. And then the neighbor's wife used to make a lot of snide remarks towards my mom, because my mom at the time was a housewife. And my mom is very, very light skinned. So, yeah. It's just, you know, still attacking her race, no matter what shade of color she is, she's still, you know, basically a Negro. So, just kind of trying to bring her down. But, I mean, it was really hypocritical because the man's wife was a housewife as well, as far as I was concerned. And I just remember this one morning where it all culminated into this shouting match between my mom and the neighbor's wife, and my mom just like went to my dad's car and just held on the horn and was just like spewing a bunch of expletives and, I don't know, bringing the woman's daughter into it, because she did used to kind of do some shady stuff right outside their home at night, which I won't get into, but yeah, and I guess it kind of sort of boiled down after that. You know, there was just a bit of tension between us and those neighbors for years going on afterwards until we eventually moved. And one of the reasons why we moved was because of that.
Ah, okay, so you moved. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, it
Do
doesn't
you
matter.
still live there?
Sometimes whenever I ride through my old neighborhood, I see the house, but I don't know if they're there still. And I don't necessarily care. Like, once people show their true colors to me in life, like, depending on what those true colors are, it really determines whether or not I care about them as an individual or not. Like, it doesn't make any sense devoting any sort of energy towards someone who really does not care about your existence for like absolutely stupid reasons.
Right. Do you think people like that could ever change?
They were pretty old at the time. Like, I think they were already like in their 50s and stuff. So I don't think so. If they live most of their life in this country, they're set in their ways like that. We weren't the only black people in that neighborhood. Yeah, I don't think that no.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Because the older folks are set on this mindset that any sort of superiority over another group of people is an advantage to them that they don't want to let up.
I feel like they would become aware, and there's a chance that they can become aware and know better, but if they would choose to accept what they know or choose to ignore it, I don't know about that, because I'll be on Shay's side of this. I feel like it will be them choosing not to if they're already older. But if it's like someone that's younger, I feel like there's a higher chance of nipping this ideology in by the bud for the younger folks.
Yeah.
That being said, there is possibility people can change, right? It happens. But I would personally be very cautious if I know that there's some older people who have a history of being like this. I won't outright judge them, or like use my knowledge of them being racist against them, or have it affect any decision except just me being precautious in a sense. Other than that, but people do have the opportunity to change and the chance to change. They just have to prove that they've changed, you know?
Yeah. I feel like people could change on the outside, but somewhere deep down, especially with old people, they would still have that belief that they're better than people.
Racial
Oh,
prejudice.
Or like, when it comes to marriage to their own family, they're fine with black and Indian people otherwise, but when it comes to their family, it's like, you're not marrying that black man, you're not marrying that Indian girl.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah,
That
there we
is
go.
called
I think that's the
hypocrisy.
most common form of one of the types of racism in Trinidad. Is when it comes to their
Balvin,
family specifically,
yes.
is you're not coming here. But otherwise, I'm fine with you, but you're not coming here.
That's so stupid. That's what I say. It's just the little things like, but why though?
You're right.
It's like they just want to show face, like they want to look like good guys, but that's not really what you believe. It's a mask, and it's. I guess you can put a mask on and be respectful, but deep down it's still there, and it doesn't really changes everything. It might help alleviate the actual discrimination outwards, but it doesn't change the situation. Your kid's going to grow up knowing this, and would they do the same thing you're doing, which is to give respect? But your decision really does matter, and your ideologies that you carry affects everything else.
It's really strange how intermixed race issues are with other societal issues. Like, when it comes to issues of marriage and families, I tend to see there's definitely an aspect of misogyny there, where you see this group this racial group being protective of their women, as if their women are theirs alone to keep, objectifying women within racial groups and that sort of thing, seeing men from other racial groups as a threat to that, right? And so when it comes to dealing with racism, it's like we can't just deal with racism, because then all these other issues come up too. Which is one of the reasons why I guess it's such a difficult, we tend to say it's a difficult conversation for people to have. It's not really difficult. It's just that I guess the powers that be truly know, like, how linked racism is to how society functions at large, that they don't want to challenge that at all, because it gives some people an advantage.
But why is it difficult? Or why do they say it's difficult to have the conversation? That's what I want to know. What is so difficult?
So that they don't have it. It's just a
shows on ignorance.
No, it's just to dissuade people from having it. If you are told constantly that something is too difficult to do, would you pursue it?
I feel like it's because they put a bunch of taboos around it, so it make you scared to try and have the conversation. Because a lot of people will be like, oh, well, we shouldn't say this because something offensive might come up. But why would they take it to an offense in the first place if you didn't mean it as an offense? How can you have a discussion if you're so scared that everybody gonna get scared or offended by something that they shouldn't get offended by? The whole point of it is to try to remove that stigma, right? Of feeling offense or having a feeling like you're gonna give offense. Because then you're just walking on eggshells, walking on glass. You're like tiptoeing through it. But why? That's when they say it's a difficult thing to talk about, that's what I think about. Like, it's difficult to the extent in your mind that this is how you're gonna see it as.
Yeah.
So I guess we need to generate discussions on it and try and desensitize it, normalize it.
I think the other thing as well is that you all will be familiar with reparations, right? And talks of reparations. And you could, I guess, understand why, like, for example, the relationship between France and Haiti. France bankrupted Haiti because they had the audacity to stand up for their human rights, you know, as people, and fought to free themselves from slavery. So I think one of the reasons why they also say it's a difficult conversation to have is because when the truth is revealed that race, you know, I mean, of course race has always been a tool of control, because slavery, you know, in some form has been, you know, founded on racial differences and all that stuff, which came out of the Enlightenment period. Once that truth is firmly established, once the perpetrators of certain things admit that, you know, like that race doesn't matter, and the only reason why it matters is because they make it matter. People would start, well, they are afraid, I guess, that people would start to demand reparations. It may not necessarily be true, right? Because I personally am not in a position of demanding reparations for my ancestors being slaves, right? Because, you know, the person I am, the world we live in right now, the societal and racial issues and things that I would have faced is not necessarily on the same level as other people. So my worldview is completely different. But I guess they are so afraid. They are so afraid that so many people would demand some kind of justice for all of the years of racial injustice that they just want to keep things quiet. You know, they really don't want to. Yeah, they really just don't want to have the conversation.
That makes sense then. Okay, I understand that. That's why we should do the opposite, right? Because we're the rebels.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, you don't want me to talk about this? Fuck you, I'm gonna talk about it anyway. So we can talk
Exactly.
What? Yeah, that's just it. It's like, we have so much power that we can do this. We just have to keep doing it.
They lose the power that they have.
Like, just normalize it. Let it become okay. There's a lot of thing in society that's locked behind what people have as their conception of this is how it's supposed to be. Says who? Who said this is how it's supposed to be? Like, I always hate that. Be like, this is just how it is. Why? Why is this just how it is? It's stupid. Like, and the worst thing is, like, you're in this country with everybody, and they're like, this is how it's supposed to be. And I'm like, says who? Like, when was this established? Are you using your brains? Are we not an independent country now? Can't we set our own laws of what can and cannot be? It's like, it's very silly. And the most easiest, fastest thing people dip their hands into for anything else is religion. But it's, like I said, this is what you call hypocrisy, because I know some people who, like, head first into church, but they're also freaking racist, and I'm like, how? Tell me how, like, what?
Because
my brain is just hurt trying to figure it out. Like,
race and religion are also intertwined.
It's like, this
Race
don't
and
make any
religion, race
sense.
and sex, race and business, race and politics, race and everything. And it does not have to be, because it's just a difference in hair texture and skin color and nothing else.
Yes,
You know?
that's right. Ashley, what do you think? Ash?
It's,
Hello
she's muted.
from the other side.
Sorry, guys. Like, things were going on my end. So I had to mute.
All good, hon. I was asking you for your. What did you hear? The question and stuff? Or?
Yeah, the personal experiences question. Where do I start?
Start at the beginning, my child.
Well, one of the instances that will forever stick with me is it's just little microaggressions that happen on a day-to-day basis, and those are things that I can't unsee. Like, you do have like the big instances of like racism and prejudice and colorism and all these isms that happen, but the ones that hurt the most and the ones that stick with you the most are the microaggressions, in my opinion.
Can you specify?
Like, I go in a store with my friend, bookstore, for example, right? Go in a bookstore with my friend in Portersfield, right? My friend and I end up separating because we have different taste in books, so we go to look at different sides of the store. Now, I know that this is like a customer service thing at the same time, where people would come up to you and ask you, do you need any help or anything? But it's also different when they come up to you and ask you if you need any help. You tell them, no, you're just browsing, and they continue to dog you through the store, but no one else.
Oh no.
I love that so much. You know why?
Why?
I love to perpetuate the idea in their mind that they are actually right about their racist notions right up until I get to the counter with my wallet in hand. It's fun.
Jeez.
Yeah, and like, there was this time I went into a store in one of the malls. This is back when I was working. Like, I'm not working now, so I can't do that now. But the same thing happened. I was being followed around the store, and I think the lady there, pale presenting lady, assumed that I would not be able to afford anything in the store.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I ended up spending like about $500 in a woman's store, which was a lot.
This wasn't Guessing West Mall, was it?
Yes.
I heard about stuff like this, but I just didn't think. Wow, it's. I don't understand
So
that.
have you had the same experience in West Mall?
I had the same experience there buying jeans. Shitty little pair of jeans for $900 and something dollars.
$900.
Christ and Paul, one day.
Oh my
One
god.
day.
I went into one of the stores that had like those trinkets and stuff.
I hear when people do that.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's an example of a microaggression that I don't like, and for me makes me feel more icky than somebody outright just calling me
Yeah.
the he word or the N word.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff like, I don't know, Che, if you have gotten this, because you are I am making a presumption, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are a cisgendered man. So I don't know if you would have gotten the same thing, but the comments that people would make where they say, oh, you're so pretty for XYZ, or oh, you speak well for XYZ. or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's another microaggression that I'm like, why?
Unnecessary.
When you have, I have to wonder how many of you all have friends from Western Trinidad. You know what I
I
mean?
have
like
the one
Westmoreland.
friend.
And you all ever had to interact with their parents?
Yes.
Right.
But luckily, her parents are local as fuck because they travel the world and stuff, so they're very well cultured when it comes to. So I never had a negative experience, thank God. They're very sweet.
But I would have definitely gotten those comments, Ashley, from the parents of friends of mine from the West specifically. Because I guess they really do assume the little of people outside of their area. I don't want to demonize,
Yeah.
right? I don't wanna, you know, I guess typicalize it, but it's just been my experience, I guess 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, but like even living in the West myself, Jay, you know, living in the West and going to one of those, well, prestigious schools,
Prestigious schools.
you know,
Hmm.
you do experience the
Ah.
microaggressions there as well, in the way that
Oh, definitely. From teachers.
not the teachers specifically, but in the way that the culture is with the students and the school. And it's made very clear that certain students are definitely treated differently, even if they don't say it out loud.
Yeah.
Like,
I hate that.
in regards to, I remember there's an incident in regards to hair rules. Now we know that all schools in Trinidad have a rule that says that you're not supposed to dye your hair outrageous colors or have quote unquote outrageous colors in your hair, which is understandable because, you know, conformity, and you can only get individuality when you reach 18 and you leave. Or you leave Form 5, depending on if you decide to do Form 6 or not. Right? But what would always get me is the difference in how they treated it. And I think this is probably more prejudice than outright racism, but prejudice and microaggressions, because the how do I phrase it? The students with fine textured straight hair, would often put balayages and highlights in their hair, and the teachers, the principal, the school would not have an issue with it. But there was this one incident when I was in Form 6 where this girl who had locks decided that she would lighten the ends of her locks. So the ends of her locks had been bleached, right? And she was being told to cut them off or dye them back because it was inappropriate for school. But there were a lot of other persons who were walking around with like ombre dyes and highlights and stuff, and they were not told to dye back their hair.
Yeah, I would believe it though. When it comes to prestigious schools and stuff, there's a lot of prejudice and the thing there, right? And a lot of nepotism too. A lot of, I guess, you know, those families would send their eldest daughter and their middle daughter and then their youngest daughter to the schools and stuff, and all the teachers know them because they knew their sisters that came through before and everything, and they know their parents already and all that stuff. They know where their parents work, and, you know, they know all that background. So it's like some of the teachers would automatically give some of these students preferential treatment, and because of where we live, well, going into the CIC, it exists in the boys' schools as well. And I think it's more issue of prejudice because it kind of transcends race. Because there were, you know, wealthy black boys that would have gotten preferential treatment from the teachers and faculty and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's why I said more
Because
prejudice and
of their parents'
microaggressions
position.
than outright racism.
Yeah. Yeah. And they would have been allowed to get away with almost murder, more or less. Yeah. So, you know, it's really a bad thing.
Yeah.
Either
What
way.
about you, Sarah?
So, luckily for me, in school, I never experienced anything from my teaching staff. Like, we had a well mixed set of staff, and they never did anything like that. Like, at least I've never seen them do anything like that to students as well. I went to Holy Faith Convent in Pinal, so everyone get the same rules passed on them. Everybody get the same name getting put in the black book for the skirts being too short. You can't use that starch thing to make your color too stiff and look too fancy. Everyone got in trouble for dyeing their hair, for wearing hoops, fairings, and not studs. It was like the basic things, but we never really, at least not me, and I've never witnessed it for any of my classmates. But if they did, and if they ever do come across this, I would like to know about it. But from my experience, I didn't experience anything like that. As for the students, I don't think I feel like my situation was a little bit different. Would prejudice be the right word here? Because it was like I went into a school with a lot of wealthy girls, and at that time we didn't really have much money, so we could have barely be able to afford all my textbooks and stuff. But I passed for the school, so I was going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my shoes, because we would buy cheap shoes, and your girl was to run everywhere and on her foot all the time, so shoes could eat away in within a month, right? But we really couldn't afford it, so I would run around with little tattered shoes for like 2-3 months before we could get next one. And I don't know if that was subject to me being looked at weirdly, but I know there was a group of girls that just kind of looked down on me because of that. Also because I was quiet. Like, I went into that school, I think it's because I had a bigger sister at that point in time. Yeah, I said bigger, not older, but we know it's the same thing, right? Right. So, it's like, I went in there with a level of understanding, and I did not want to talk about popular culture at that time with regards to like singers or artists or linemen or partying. I didn't want to talk about boys. I was into writing at that point was when I started it. So because I was quiet and I didn't really have like the best clothes, and I looked very, very average because they used to just put me in my uniform. I'll just comb my hair normal and just go to school. So that was the prejudice I faced for a few years, up until probably Form 4 or 5, and then, I don't know, I just got the best group of classmates I could ever want. Everything was really nice. I think that was the point when we all got to choose our subjects as well, so maybe we had some other personalities in the mix. So, but yeah, I can't say for sure. Maybe people was racist. Maybe that was one of the things that actually, like, one of the back-end things to my prejudice against me, but I've never felt it. I don't think anybody outright did anything racist. However, in my family though, we have a big okay, this is a big family. It's like grandma had lots of kids, right? So I have lots of uncles and aunts. And it's like one thing I watched my cousins go through, because my father was the youngest, so I'm like the youngest cousin in the whole set, me and my other cousin, and it's just two of us. And boy, if I tell you, I don't know, man, it was always a competition between these siblings. I don't know why. It's like the same thing who it was mentioned, that you could be friends with them but don't bring them home. Are you dating this person? What my family gonna say if they find out that, you know? But like, you can't date somebody of the opposite race if you're friends with them. It was a problem. your friends in the LGBT community and they find out that's a problem, you dare be in the LGBT community. Well, at least none of my family ever came out to me with regards to this, and I really hope if they were, they didn't like suffer too much. But anything like that, it was always, what people going to say about it? What is the family going to say about it? The family not going to like this. You can't do this. They will laugh at me. They would say this. They would say that. And I was always the one to be like, but who cares? Why does it matter? Why do you want to have a certain pride? So it did exist within my family, and I did witness it, and I don't know if it still exists anymore because I've lost contact for a while now. But I'd like to hope it doesn't, because this was mostly among parents, aunts and uncles, like the older folks in the family. I didn't really see this in my cousins though. I more see them being the victims of their parents going back and forth like this. But I always hated that. I just don't understand it, because you're like, why does this have to affect anything? It shouldn't affect who my friends are. It shouldn't affect. And as females, walking down the street with a boy, obviously it means something going on there. Y'all fucking behind the school or something. It's like, sorry, okay, I'll stop. But we all know that's what they ask you when you're growing up. I remember now graduating from primary school, and I walking down the road. One of my friends passed for Shiva boys. We walking down the road together. That was a big problem, because I remember my aunt asking me, I see you was walking with this boy after school. You shouldn't do that, because so and so. And I was like, but it's my friend. And she's like, no, but nobody going to think so. They're going to say so and so. And I'm just still like, but it's my friend though. I literally now get out of primary school. Like, I was in primary school 3 months ago, and you're telling me I can't walk with this boy who was my classmate because something going on. And I was as young as now in Form 1. So I just lost my shit over that. I was like, what? And it's like everybody, and it's so family, I tell you. And then I know not everyone's family like this, so for those of you who don't have family that do this, please appreciate what you have been blessed with, because that is, I don't know, it's stupid, because you'll be hearing one family member away from the next one saying, oh, did you see so and so and so? Oh Lord, the gossip, it kills me. But yeah, that's my experience of seeing and hearing about it from my point of view with particular family members. And that's why I'm so livid, because I hate it. I don't like this whole thing of, oh, well, if I want to be racist, you had to be racist too. Excuse me? No? It's stupid. And it's like, the most you could do is just get older, watch them in the eye, and do exactly what they tell you not to do, because they can't say anything or do anything about it thereafter. That's the most you can do.
Especially after they die.
Yeah, sometimes I think about that. Let's solve all these problems. Everyone just drop dead and then reborn.
Oh God, Umar.
I mean,
Lord. You got okay. Hold on.
Scorched earth approach.
No, really. When you think about it, eventually
geez.
they're gonna die out, and the beliefs would pass down to a certain degree, but maybe in a few decades the world will be better.
That's what I'm saying. It's like we have so much hope and faith for the younger generation right now. Like, there's so many bad things that's going on, and it's like it stems from the stubborn older folks who choose to be ignorant, and then there's some of them who just don't. They listen to you. I know there's some parents who actually listen to their children, and some parents who grow with their children. Like, they would adjust. They would see their kids going to school. They would adjust to the norms. They wouldn't say, what the hell is that? Take that off. No, they would try and pay attention to it, try to learn and understand what their kids going through. So you see, those are like good parenting in a sense as well. So you become aware of what's going on, and they just update it. They're aware of it. They choose not to be closed-minded. And then there's instances, well, keep bringing this up, there are communities in the country, they're innocently ignorant. Like, they just honestly don't know any better. And I feel like it would be really nice to help them out. they obviously won't see it as help, but find some way to bring awareness to them, because they are genuinely people who don't know, because they're locked in a box. They're locked in a box of their family culture growing up. They're locked in a box of religion. They're locked in a box of their village's norms. And I feel like we're just not gonna get anywhere. So it's not like all the older folks are like that. That's not how it is. It's not true. Because the reason why I learned otherwise is because of the people I learned from. My teachers in school. I had good people supporting me all the way growing up. Adults who knew better. And I learned from them. It wasn't just my peers alone. So it's like, that's lessons for good teachers, by the way.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. My school was very surface level. The teachers would just teach.
Oh Lord.
Like, I don't think anyone had like a personal relationship with teachers. Like, they weren't that kind of teachers in my school.
In Convent, it wasn't like personal. It was like the teachers respected you and you respected them, and they always wanted the best for you. And I think when I went to Shiva Boys for A's, well, that's when I got in personal levels, where the teachers, they actually connected with you, because I was like Form 6, right? So you're stepping into adulthood, and they're starting to give you that respect for you as an adult. So it was very nice.
Wow, lucky.
But I was always blessed to have great teachers in my life, and I am so happy for that.
Oh God, you went to Convurnt.
So I will really appreciate. I went to Convent, and I went to Shiva Boys.
I went to Convent too, Umar. What's wrong with that?
Yes, let me hear the accent. Sorry, I had to make
Wam,
that joke.
Umar.
You want to hear accents? I'll get your
Oh
accent,
God,
you
oh
know.
God, oh God.
Oh Lord.
Pull it back.
Mark can
Okay,
help it.
actually on the topic, like, I do want us to touch a little bit, like, on, like, I don't know if you guys have seen it down here, but, like, worldwide with the relevance, worldwide with the COVID-19 that is going, pandemic that is ongoing right now, and the worldwide, I say worldwide, hate and prejudice and racism that is being geared towards Asians.
Yes.
Yes.
Asian hate crimes.
So the way I see that, right? You know, things are kind of like in phases. And we had the whole episode a couple years back about Chinese people eating dog.
Yeah.
So I think that was exhausted, and because we've seen how the rest of the world reacted towards Asian people and stuff, I guess maybe we are trying as a country not to make the same mistakes again. Because I honestly have not been aware of that kind of racial prejudice towards Asians in Trinidad during COVID. I am certainly aware of it, you know, in other countries, you know.
I have
But
a
I'm
theory.
aware of racial prejudice towards Asians
During
before COVID.
I don't know how, like, I don't know if it's prejudice because of COVID or if it's just regular good old prejudice herself. But there is a Chinese restaurant very close to where I live, and they have, like, a couple times when I've gone in there, I have seen people go in and make very discriminatory comments towards them. They have been, like, thing with their business, and I think they got robbed again the other day. And, like, when I heard the story from a neighbor in the thing, they were saying, yeah, they got robbed because, you know, they're Chinese and they deserved it because they're Chinese.
Okay. All right.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's where
Wow.
the ignorant, jealous mindset comes in, right? Because
Interesting.
stereotypically, I guess, we know Chinese people in this country to be business owners, grocery store owners, casino operators, and that sort of thing. So we would always
Which in itself is
associate the
also a
Chinese-
stereotype.
Yeah, right. So people would often associate the Chinese with money, and I guess to more disadvantaged people, they just don't like that. They feel that it's because these people are inherently Chinese is why they have this level of success or anything, and has nothing to do with, you know, these people coming from a country that's, you know, more or less almost entirely homogenized, and they have this rich history of culture and stuff that's been preserved over the years, and has absolutely nothing to do with their race.
Also, I'd like to point out that this is also an issue. Like, I remember way back when it was a big problem because of resources in the country. And now that Che had mentioned, he was saying that we haven't really seen any Asian hate as much because of the COVID, which is surprising. But you still hear the jokes, right? But I want to point out what was going on in Trinidad last year, for that year when COVID hit. What was happening to our neighbor countries, and what was going on in Trinidad.
Right.
Who has the spotlight? Right, they have the
That's thing
spotlight.
too.
And you know why they have a
What-
problem with them? The same resources thing. That is one of
Yeah.
that's a really big thing. And the thing is, it's a valid point to be concerned about. But there is also unnecessary racism behind that as well, discrimination going towards them, and it's also something we need to talk about, because where did our deep roots of racism in this country come from? Was it not fighting over resources? Was it not an issue about which race would be more, I don't know, favored? I don't know. I just remember reading history, and it was something along those lines that brought up a lot of arguments,
Yeah.
a lot of issues. But is it really a problem now that it should still be like that should be existent? Like, why? You can see
There's,
it. It's happening. The Chinese came. They had an issue with them, but all of a sudden we don't have a problem with them no more, right? What new people coming into the country? So let's push the spotlight on them. And the thing is, if it was originally such a big issue, why is it a spotlight that's getting pushed around from one to the other? Isn't it just that people have a hype that they just want to go on about? Can they not just focus on one thing? I don't know. It's just kind of confusing. Maybe there's a method to their madness, and when they bring up these talks and when they choose to hype something up, maybe I'm just not seeing something yet. But
Now, as film students, all of us, we
Yes,
would be
we did graduate.
we would be very familiar with the film BIM,
Yes.
right?
I actually
I'm sorry, I have to bring this up. You know, it's one of my favorite movies of
Same
all
thing.
time. I literally have a copy of it in my hands right now.
I
This
have
movie-
the ripped one from
This movie,
Please send it to me.
lol.
you said it out loud.
Oh man,
Yeah, cut out her neighbor,
I hope
because I
that's
don't
not
think
what
she
it
would be
was.
appreciated.
yeah, it's like beeping. So, this movie I think is a perfect time capsule. It's a great. It's not 100% accurate, but it's based on enough of Trinidad and Tobago's history of a nation before independence, and also during, like, you know, the 1970s Black Power movement and all that stuff. That it is a good window into where the, you know, racial divide and all that stuff started, like showing the colonial powers more or less engineering the quote-unquote race war between Africans and Indians in Trinidad and Tobago because of the looming threat of independence. Either side was more or less led to wonder who exactly is going to take over the country once the white man leaves. And once the white man leaves, if so-and-so takes over the country, what does that mean for us? That fear that they created is still existent to this day. And it is one of the things that this movie touches upon, and that's why I always reference it a lot, because it's timeless. And not enough Trinbagonians know about this film. So I just want to make a quick plug. Right? I believe you all could find this film, BIM. You all should find it on YouTube. You all could watch it there for free. If you do like the film, it is an old film. You know, it's not going to be of the best quality. But if you do want to support, you could go to Paper Based in the Normandy Hotel in Cascade, yes, and you could purchase a copy there for yourself, and you know, be a Trini, support the local film industry, and have yourself a copy of a very, very, very important film.
I wish I was born when Film was released, because the things I've heard about the just the hype about it, like it was a moment of where cinema was really appreciated in Trinidad and people were rallying behind it.
I believe it was banned for about 2 years even by the censorship board.
Yeah, because we have no modern event where a modern movie made it as big, and that really sucks. Yes, so a lot of people on local social media was, when BLM happened, well, first of all, BLM is not a new thing, but when George Floyd, you know, the whole event happened, a lot of people were saying how all lives matter versus, you know, Black Lives Matter. So what is your guys' opinion on All Lives Matter?
It's the same as, you know, it's a really difficult discussion to have. It's literally, there's nothing wrong, don't interfere with the status quo, shut up, right? They try to make it seem like the brutality we see against black males by the police in the States is justified and normal, and that it's not disproportionate. It exists in all other races, and we should just, you know, be fine with it. That person was obviously breaking the law, and they were obviously resisting, and the police were just doing their jobs as they were trained to do, not questioning the police training or anything like that. And the problems exist here as well. It mightn't be white police officers attacking, you know, black criminals or perceived criminals or anything like that. But it's not even an issue of colorism here as well, but you still have, you know, sections of the society demonized and the police going after them, and some of it may or may not be orchestrated, but we get memes from it now. You always have that woman say, oh, the police so wicked and all that stuff, right? But the police are a tool for, you know, the powers that be in society to maintain the status quo. So the police assist in demonizing not just a group of people in society, but they assist in demonizing an entire race of people, whether they know it or not. In the States, it's a whole other issue because, you know, people talk about the KKK more or less being embedded in the police force, and I'm actually one to believe that, because the way in which they are so quick to operate with black people versus white people, well, black people and anyone else really versus white people, it's just there's too stark a contrast there.
Yeah. For me, the reason why All Lives Matter doesn't work or should never been a thing is you're instantly trying to make the situation about you. You know, when one group of people is hurting or being oppressed, you're supposed to give support to that group and not think about yourselves in the moment, you know.
Yeah. It's akin to Not All Men.
Yeah.
Or any other not all this group of people while we're talking about this specific group of people. Because if the only time All Lives Matter usually is ever brought up is in the context of talking about Black lives. It's never used outside of that. Or lives of color. It's never used outside of that.
It's like, why is this coming up? Yes, all lives matter. Yeah, that's the whole point of Black Lives Matter. Duh, you know. It's like, what are you trying to prove when you bring it up? Because when I now saw it, I didn't quite understand what's going on, because it's either it's gonna work for it or it's not gonna work for it. And the whole point of the All Lives Matter when it came up was to work against the Black Lives Matter, in my opinion, because it defeated the whole point of the movement. Why would you do that? It exists for a reason. So it's like, say, when you talk about feminism, there's always a group that says, yeah, but men deserve this too. But no one said men don't. No one never said that. Nobody ever said that. The whole point was we're just highlighting this situation right now. This is because it was a problem to begin with. That was what the movement was there for, to alleviate that problem. Yes, all lives matter. So then why are you being racist and why are you being discriminative? Why are these black people suffering? It's like, that's the whole point of having the movement come up, and the movement was specified. So I feel like people just, again, like I said, this is Trinidad. We have different communities who don't understand anything, and they have a bandwagon mentality. So I'm pretty sure 50% of those comments you see supporting that All Lives Matter thing had to be people who was like, oh, you know what, you're right, yeah, that's true, All Lives Matter, and they go ahead and they, jump on it, but they don't really understand it. And then when you call them out in the comments, they'll be like, oh, really, you just want to cause problems, haha. And then they're quick to jump on, this silly old start insulting you and saying things that don't matter to it and choosing ignorance when you try to explain things. Not me, by the way. I like to read comments. I like to read comments a lot. Just see people argue, and I'll just be like, I can see this is talking to a wall. Let's not even bother.
Yeah, I had a few friends who shared the All Lives Matter thing.
Oh Lord.
Like on statuses and thing, and I replied to them. I confronted them.
How was their responses?
They deleted it. Because I'm sure they were scared of whatever I would tell them.
Oh man.
It was hilarious.
But that shows that they chose to
them.
listen, right? It showed that they understood.
I still don't think they change their thinking of it. They just deleted it because they were scared of whatever people would say.
I see. Oh, so they just removed it because it's better to not have someone explain something to change your point of view. It's better to keep that point of view, more or less. But I don't mind when people try to correct me with that. If there's something I'm missing, please tell me. I can't know what you're thinking if you don't tell me. If I'm saying something wrong and you have a reason to believe that it's wrong, and there's something I don't understand, that's why I'm saying it's wrong, then tell me. And I'll consider it, I'll think about it. All the research I have, all the knowledge I have, all your knowledge, put it together and see what I come up with. Because we all have, as human beings, the ability to think for ourselves and make our own decision, which is why I hate, and I saw this was a thing to talk about, this bandwagon, and it's stupid. It's stupid, and I will always say, because different parts of the country needs to have particular awareness so they don't bandwagon. It's dumb. And that's why I think this All Lives Matter thing came up. People don't know why it came up to begin with in the first place. Do they know that it came up and it as an anti towards the Black Lives Matter movement? People started saying All Lives Matter as a result of that, as a reaction. Nobody
when
knows
you
that.
look at the people that say All Lives Matter here in particular as well, it's always the wealthier group within our society.
Privileged,
the sheltered, disconnected group of people. Yeah, because again, they fear the same problems that I guess other quote unquote superior people will be feeling, in because they know they're not superior. It's a whole inferiority complex, right? Once you make people realize that you are not superior to them and everyone is on equal footing, they're going to want retribution. Yeah. So they're just quick to quiet everything down because they don't want people to recognize the parallels between America and Trinidad and Tobago. So they're quick to say all lives matter. Calm down, calm down. Right? And then they do the most tone-deaf things imaginable to more or less out themselves on social media as just being ignorant.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of people say how we follow fashion in America, but the truth is, oops, no.
Mm-hmm.
My Discord cut off. I didn't hear one of you guys talking. Jay, go
No,
ahead.
the truth is.
Although the truth is, America influences us the most. You know,
Yeah.
they like to say we follow fashion, but the fact is, most of our views of society is because of America.
Yeah.
And just
And I
little
remember what I was
things
gonna
like,
say now.
boy color being blue and girl color being pink. Before 1920s, boys were wearing pink and women were wearing blue. It's because America
I'm
chose
so
to
glad now that
push
that's
us to the
not
front
really-
that you grew up with the notion that thinking boy is a blue color.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it not really is, but
It's
people
one
would
of
still have a
those
problem of
tiny
a boy wearing
things.
pink, you know?
Yeah, no, really, it's true. He's saying it's one of those things that's just like, very small on the back of your mind, but you don't realize it. But if you go to buy something for a child,
Yeah.
you will automatically color code it. That it does happen. It's just coded in. It's there.
Yeah.
So we could break it, by the way. So if Che, you never had that experience, it means your parents never actually follow suit with that, which is how we can break it for our kids or any child
no,
that we
it's-
choose to grow up as well.
What I was
We
gonna
could-
say is that when it comes to clothing in particular, it's not necessarily that much of an issue. With older guys wearing like pink and lighter colors and that sort of thing, because I'm sure y'all would have remembered going out throughout the 2000s, guys wearing the very, very bright colored tight jeans, the skinny jeans, and the bright shoes and all that stuff, extremely flamboyant colors, and their sexuality wasn't questioned or anything like that,
Exactly.
right?
I hate how fast the notion of fashion and the association with sexuality, it moves so fast, because in the 80s, long hair, teased hair, makeup, crop tops were all for boys,
Yeah.
and that was what, you know, manly men was. Very feminine men were considered manly men. It's very,
Pretty boy,
it moves
man
too
stuff
fast.
then.
Yeah, it moves too fast, the trends with fashion.
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to say about the whole bandwagoning thing here is, well, what I don't like about it, right, is the fake individuals that take everything as a photo op. And I mean, those that would have been quick to protest an egregious event that occurred in America just so that they could have their picture taken for social media. That sort of thing. Right?
Yeah.
Because it happened with Black Lives Matter movement, and it happens in other movements as well. And it's very hard, you know, as a person outside, to feel sympathetic to a cause when a significant portion of the people within that cause aren't necessarily there for the cause. Because we know often, too often, when something terrible happens in this country, you know, everybody's up in arms about it for a while and then it's just forgotten. And nothing is done about it until the next tragedy occurs, and it's a cycle that just repeats.
Yeah. You did ask me about it. Remember when Andrea body was found? You asked me how do you feel about people bandwagoning about the cause.
Yeah.
I said I'll take what I take, but also it is very annoying. Because outside of the situation, you're not fighting for, you know, the rights. And
Yeah, and
suddenly
you're
you
not
want to
doing
share all these
anything.
things.
You're not contributing to change. You're not having any meaningful discussions about the state of society or anything like that. You're just out there. I saw it within my circle of friends and I was disgusted by it because, you know, I thought that I would have associated more with, people who were genuine about causes that they are aware of and that sort of thing. And I was proven wrong in that instance. And then also
Fun story about that whole situation. There was a group that came about for women, right? And it's a very nice support group. And I've been on it since then. It was created with intentions initially for awareness, and then it became something of empowering and awareness. But recently there was an article, and I know this straying away from our actual topic right now, but it was just regards to the bandwagoning as well. It's like this girl she met someone off social media, and she got attacked and abused and all the gruesome stuff.
Yes.
yeah,
And she reported it. After all of that, knowing that she went there and knowing what people would say, she went and reported it still, which is a very brave thing to do. And I am so glad she did that, because a lot of people would have been scared of the public, of what they would say when they find out that you went there. And I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of perpetrators would say. Oh, you came here. You know the lines. You guys know the lines. It's like, you come here, so you can't say nothing now. And that's probably what they thought when they did what they did. They probably didn't think she would report it, but I'm so glad she did. And that being said, when that post was shared in that woman's support group, it was very interesting to see what other women had to say. I think they completely forgot about the incidents before, and they completely forgot that there's nothing that can justify the actions done to this girl. And it's like, did they forget what happened? December was recently, no?
Yeah.
The same women, and December was very recently. And I was like, now it wasn't all of them. I will keep saying this. It wasn't all of them, but it's just very interesting to see how fast dynamics change up and how fast people start making excuses for like things that's happened that shouldn't be happening. Making excuses for it. It's stupid.
Victim blaming is always terrible, and I'm certain that some of the women that would have been quick to say those things about her meeting someone on social media and whatnot, I'm sure they have Tinder profiles or some other dating service profile,
Yep, and a lot of the younger women tried to explain
supposed to do that during COVID anyway. People still want to meet people and make connections and stuff. You cannot attack this woman for meeting someone online. People meet people online all the time. And a lot of younger women tried to explain it too. They try to point that out, that dating sites and dating apps do exist in the country, and this is something not normal. It's not normal that what happened. So they can't say that this happened because she did that, because other women do it all the time, but they don't get caught in something like this because they were never unfortunate enough to run into a monster. Yeah, with pure evil intent from the get-go.
Yeah. So this was not normal. So they were like, I mean, precaution is something everyone needs to follow. That is true, right? But that aside, you shouldn't be saying, I will have no mercy for this girl and she deserved what happened. That is so wrong.
Because you're sure they're not living their lives completely sheltered and tucked away from society.
Right. But that's my take on this bandwagoning mentality in Trinidad, when everyone is like, oh yeah, let's support this. This shouldn't happen. We're a supporter. We're shutting down all the businesses, and people who were glad for it, let's hope they were glad for the right reasons and not for their selfish purposes, which I believe a lot of people were, by the way.
Yeah, corporations especially. Let's put our Black Lives. Let's put the Black Power fist on a drumstick.
But yeah, it's stupid. So people will pretend. They will pretend when everyone else is doing it, and it's okay, they will do it. But can we maintain that? Can we maintain that steady pace of kitten against the thing that's happening, or do we get tired and then go to something else that's brand new?
Not without steady societal decline.
It's not just Trinidad alone, by the way. It's in general. So it's just kind of sickening when you see it. So it was like when I heard you guys talking about it, I was like, yes, I recently witnessed this bullshit.
Okay, so for Creole Word of the Day segment, we could talk about the usage and reclamation of words like Negro in relation to our local space and compared to other spaces like America. Whether it's offensive or not, like how do you all feel about those words used in, say, slang context or otherwise?
All right, let's all not rush at once.
Because I'll start
Honestly,
off.
this is the very sensitive walking on eggshell stuff. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
This is honestly the way I feel about it, right?
Okay,
Tell
go.
me.
Yeah.
I think it is unfair to prevent white people from singing along to certain music and whatnot, if the word is included in the lyrics, right? For the sake of authenticity and artistic expression, if a white person is singing along to a rap song and it has the N-word in it, and they are only using the N-word in that context along with the song, they are not racist inherently, they indulge heavily in black culture, not necessarily to the point of appropriation. Why should we have problems with that? Because I think issues like that also perpetuate issues of race. When you tell a group of people they can't say a certain word or something like that, because it's not hard R, it'll be E, right? if it's hard R, ER, that kind of thing, and it's used in a negative context, directly aimed towards hurting someone of color or any other sort of racial slur, we should have problems with that, right? But specifically with this, we could agree that the N-word is one of the only few racial slurs that is used in any sort of casual connotation, and because of that, I think people should be allowed a pass to an extent, because it's a lot of people of color would also want to argue that the word does not mean the same thing. Yet, you often see people of color quickly being offended when a white person says it, and they do not necessarily mean anything wrong by it. And that level of sensitivity is just, kind of counterproductive to the issue of fighting racism. And, we want to feel included. We shouldn't exclude other people at the same time. We should watch our battles carefully, if you know what I mean. I have white friends who would say it in a rapping context. They would say it in my presence. I don't feel any sort of way about it, because I know they wouldn't go using the word, just willy-nilly and that kind of stuff. I know their hearts as well. And so I am completely fine by that. At the same time, I don't necessarily have anything racist to say, even in a light-hearted manner toward them. I don't know if the fact that they're Canadian, makes them a bit more cultured, but
I mean, maybe. Okay, Ashli, what do you think?
I kind of agree that it's like a fine line to walk, because on one hand, it's like, to me, and I guess it's like the word queer, where it is a slur, but in certain spaces, it's people have reclaimed it as not, and it's always context. That's the best way I could explain it.
Yeah. People tend to forget about context.
Yes.
I used to use, I don't use it anymore, but I'm being honest. In high school, like everyone around me used to use it, and like not in an offensive way, just to refer to somebody as a friend, or just an exclamation. But obviously I know it's better not to use it at all, because you never know how someone's gonna feel about it.
Yeah.
So it's safer to not use it at all. I remember one time I was with Tyler and it slipped out, and I was like, oh shit, am I gonna get cancelled right now? But it just slipped out because it's such a habitual word from back then. But yeah, no, he didn't cancel me. Thank you, Tyler. I bet Tyler don't even remember.
Hashtag cancel Umar now.
We should invite Tyler as a guest speaker.
Yes, we should. Like, we have a Tobago segment. It's just Tyler.
That would be nice, actually.
Okay. But yeah, like with regards to it, like Umar and Che was saying as well, like context. People keep forgetting context. So to me, it's like there is context, and you're smart enough to know where and when. Because with your friends, okay, if they're okay with it, fine. But if you're going to go out in public, just remember everyone has different like ways to grow up, different experiences. Sometimes this word could actually trigger something really bad in them. Maybe they will take it to offense because they only ever had offensive experiences with it. So you want to be very careful how you use these slangs and terms, because it'll be a joke for you, but it's probably not going to be a joke for someone else, and it's going to be very hurtful. So you want to use it in context. Even though you mean well, though, just be aware of it. And if someone points it out, don't ask them, oh, why are you getting offended? Because we live in a world where things gonna be like this. We can't just downgrade someone's feeling of offense to something that they genuinely feel hurt over. So like, just in case someone is actually triggered by it, you want to be very careful how you say this out loud public. You don't want to go to a group of strangers and just start flinging the slur around as if it's okay. With your friends, sure, it's fine, because you're with your friends. There's no ifs and buts about that. You all know each other and you're fine about it. And friends talk. If they're not comfortable, they would say it, right? You all set your own rules and terms and conditions in your friendships and your groups. But for me, I don't think it's very appropriate for you to just be a little badger and you go in there saying X, Y, and Z when you know that it has connotations behind it. And also, the flip side, like I was saying, there are some people who take offense just for the sake of it because of bandwagoning. So there are people like that to look out for as well. And I also think it's very stupid if you just genuinely don't take offense to it, but you take offense anyways because you want to gatekeep something like music. Then have fun gatekeeping music, I guess. Because what Shay said was right. Because I'm not on TikTok, but on Facebook or Instagram, you see people posting things, and you keep seeing videos of people getting cancelled from singing the song, and you can see they genuinely didn't mean anything. They was just singing the song, and I'm like, okay, but that's just I wouldn't be angry at them, but I mean, that's just my take on it.
That one girl who got expelled for saying the N-word on Snapchat.
I didn't. Expelled from school?
I don't know if she got expelled or suspended, but I think she had a scholarship. I don't know.
Oh, what the fuck? Did she
first of all,
do it maliciously?
I don't know. I think she was just saying like, hey, that word and stuff. But,
oh.
So
this is a good example of how it's okay with your friends, but if you're gonna go in public and just start spitting it, people gonna get offended. But yeah.
I like how we introduced the segment as the word Negro and we went straight to the N-word.
Yeah.
We should talk about
Yeah, let's talk about Negro in specifically quick.
The reclamation of words and whatnot. Because we're talking about it in relationship with our friends, and we all know that it's okay with our friends and whatnot if they think it's okay, and it's within your group and your relationships. But how do we want to go on with this in the future in the public, like as a group?
I think. Okay, Che, you go.
No, you go first. Go first.
No, see, because our view right now, where we thinking how if your friends give you a pass, it's okay. That's actually in the sort of minority, because a lot of people online don't believe that, because they say you should never, don't use it at all, because that's the view of a lot of people, right?
Even if your friends tell them fuck off, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, even if you explain the context to someone.
Yeah, but then these people have to understand, and I think Che pointed this out earlier. Who the fuck are you to just tell my friend group what we could? You don't have to know this. You know what I'm talking about before I go to sleep.
There are lots
no,
of
we
black
whispering to
people
each other
that don't even like other black people using these words because they think it just keeps us down and that sort of stuff. And they are missing the point of reappropriation. I would believe, right? Because we took power away from a word, and some people choose to still give the old word power, and then they also choose to give different powers and different meanings to the newer established word, and choose to fail to see that it is a non-issue because it's only an issue because it's being made an issue. Just like every other race issue.
When I hear my family say the word, I try to say use black or African instead, because you never know if someone's going to be offensive by it. But obviously a lot of people in Trinidad have reclaimed the word, and it's the only word they've ever known to identify themselves with. Because black, even back then, black had a offensive ring to it before it became acceptable, because at one point it was colored, then it was Negro, then it was black, but before black became the accepted word, it was considered offensive. And I don't think a lot of people know the history of that specifically, so it's hard to say who feels what, because we all have different experiences.
Yeah. Do you have an actual history thing to say about it, to bring that knowledge up?
I would leave the link in the description. But in the 1900s, the N-word became because it was derived from French and Spanish, it became a pejorative to refer to black people, and then colored became the mainstream. No, I think it was Negro, then colored, then black.
Yeah.
After the civil rights movement, then colored and Negro dissolved and black became widely accepted.
Yeah, black was more or less still legitimized, because if white people are white, black people aren't colored, black people are black, because there are more than one color, I guess. Yes, I guess that's one way. With the Black Power movement and all that stuff, they were given power to their assigned color, essentially. Just like white people say white power.
Alright, and that kind of wraps up Bellaforme. And today in our form chats. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And
Thank
Umar,
you very much. Hello.
when next will they see us?
Next week for sure.
Okay.
Next week. Alright.
Yeah, it was an interesting talk to have, because honestly, at the end of the day, none of it shouldn't matter. We are all human.
That is true.
Yes.
Sometimes it's hard to fathom people thinking they're superior to someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to think about all of the world problems.
Yeah.
Same.
Alright, guys. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Click the like button now.
Smash it. Slap up the bell.